Alright, let's see what we can do here. Got to put something out. Oh yeah. Oh, and by the way, hello viewers. Another beautiful day. Hope your five senses work. Health and strength is good. Or excellent. So sitting here on a Monday here. Gotta put content out. Yeah. Through the highs and the lows. Oh yeah. Gotta do that. Gotta put content out, man. But yeah, I seen something about Intel. Actually, I was gonna do a. Listen to this. You know, Zen 5 is in trouble. You know, Zen 5 is in trouble. You're like, huh? Listen to this. Intel rumored Zen 5 killer Nova Lake CPU to apparently needs new LGA1954 socket boards. Says here back in 2021, when Intel began struggling to keep up with AMD Zen processors in the efficiency and value, the company was rumored to be working on a Zen 5 killer. That would land in 2025. According to that report, legendary chip architect Jim Keller, who had also helped shape Zen and K12, and that's ARM base, was at the helm of Intel when designing this purported Zen 5 killer known as the Royal Core. The report also added that Royal Core would debut inside the Nova Lake lineup of processors in its full glory. While the initial plan of Nova Lake was a 2025 debut, the company confirmed earlier this year that this was not happening and that Nova Lake is a year late, as it is expected to land in 2026. During its quarter 4 2024 earnings call, Michelle Johnson, Holtus, the interim CO Chief Executive Officer of Intel and CEO of Intel Products, said PDF, looking ahead to the rest of the year, we will strengthen our client roadmap with the launch of the Panther Lake, our products on Intel 18A in the second half of 2025. 2026 is even more exciting from a client perspective as Panther Lake achieves meaningful volume and we introduce our next generation client family codename Nova Lake. Both will provide strong performance across the entire PC stack with significant better cost and margin for us, enhancing our competitive position and reinforce our value proposition to our partners and customers. Says here, thus, in order to be competitive, Nova Lake must be significantly better than AMD's Zen 5, which is already available in Ryzen 9000 series parts. Says here, Nova Lake S, the desktop variant of Nova Lake, will apparently require a new socket dubbed LGA1954. This will succeed Intel's current LGA1851 socket, compatible with Ultra Series 2 desktop CPUs like the 285K, 265K, among others. Ex-users Everest noticed the presence of an interposer for Gen 5 VR voltage regulator test tools. And then it says, for those wondering, this tool is meant for testing and validating of the new LGA1954 socket that meant to be paired with the Intel Nova Lake S desktop chip. VR tests help assess CPU power delivery and load time before actual CPU samples are placed in sockets. It is essentially a safety measure, such as healthy working chips aren't burned up due to the excess voltage current. And then it says, if you recall, we had also learned about the LGA1700 from a leak of a similar nature that was back in 2020. In terms of core specs of Nova Lake S, rumors has it that there could be up to 52 cores with the following configuration: 16P cores, 32E cores, and 4 LPS E cores via the J key on X, which equates to a 52 core, 52 thread flagship Nova Lake SKU. Remember that Intel no longer uses hyper-threading or SMT. Yeah. Yeah, Intel looking to bounce back, you know, so if this turned out to be true, then they got a good chip on their hand, but they're like a year behind. Yeah. Now we got 25 comments from the debaters and the politicians. Let's see what they're yapping about. And they got some long comments. Let's see what we got here. Who we got? Who's up first? Let's see here. Reg said this: "It's 15th Gen Core Ultra 2 has good foundation, but ultimately didn't really push the envelope. It better be good for Core Ultra 300 series because AMD is just crushing Intel on all ends so hard. Now it's not even funny. I've never seen Intel so down since Athlon XP era, really. Next generation might be spicy for both teams, and I wonder how AMD will up their already existing game." Well, there's a Zen 6 and a Zen 7 to answer that question. Anyway, Becker said this: "Mirror correction, 200 series or Core Ultra 200 is proper name. So you would put that first and then add 15 Gen in parentheses for anyone who needs clarification. The 200 series is not and never will be official called 15th generation. Even in the tech community, very few people call it that. It is a trend I prefer. Doesn't get started for my reason below. Also Core Ultra 100. So by your logic, wouldn't that make it 15th and 200 16th?" Anyway, he says, "If your goal is to be historically accurate, the 200 series is Intel 31st Gen, built on their 20th microarchitecture generation. Numbers like 14th Gen are based on the reset that happened with Nehalem in 2008, or perhaps more accurately with Sandy Bridge, a refresh in its 2700K that Rectcon the former 87 into being called first gen. Prior to that, we had a short live core branding, which was after the very long live Pentium branding, which was after the x86 number branding, like 386. And then he said, what else he says here? He says there, "My point is that Intel has rebranded their consumer CPU 5 times. Now, there is no point in training to hold one to the generation number established by their 4th gen set of branding. Either embarrass the new branding or go all the way back to the beginning and call it 31st generation. Yeah, when it comes to discussions like this, you always got some English teachers that try to correct you, you know. Anyway, Bled said this: "Still rocking a 5800X, waiting for a mammoth upgrade." And Thartis says, "Well, the 9800X3D is it for you, but you can keep waiting for even more of a leap if you go for its successive gen equivalents." Who else is this? Bled said this: "Nah, it's not enough. An upgrade for gaming, 3440 by 1440. The jump isn't there yet." And Thartis said, "Okay, then I guess you'll be good for about 3 more gens." Then Walkman says, "What graphics card do you use? Question mark." And then Becker says, "This is something a lot of people don't realize, that on 1440p gaming with high settings, not even Ultra or RT, the GPU is the bottleneck, and a faster CPU really isn't going to help. If the GPU is already the bottleneck, then the only thing a faster CPU can do for you is improve the 1% load, which is a typical perceive as lag or jitter, but most modern CPU already handle that fine, so only worth investing in if that is something you see with an issue with. It's never a good idea to theory craft a situation where you need something better. Wait until you have a real need. As a tech enthusiast, it's easy to get exact about having the latest thing, but you end up wasting a lot of money. It's got a good point. Who was this? Then Blood said this. Yup, I am far more reserved with my upgrade frequency than my younger days. 3090, 32 gigs of RAM, 32C 14 RAM, 5800X. Cost of upgrading is much higher than it used to be. If Half-Life 3 comes out, I will upgrade to the latest AMD Intel for that and get a 5090. Yeah. Speaking of Half-Life, it might come out this year. And Becker says, "Yep, I have the same exact system. Expect I had to replace my older 2070 Super when it died with a 7800 XT. No plan to replace it anytime soon. Would probably still be rocking my 2070 if it didn't die." I mean, it had an expiration date. And then Thartis said, whatever, as long as they are worth something. Then Leon said, seriously, new socket? Can Intel engineers design something good on the same socket like AMD does? What's up with this company and socket lifespan? Don't they know they're in trouble here? That this isn't the time for playing those cards. And then Ringo, he says, well, I am sure people take advantage of AMD socket life. I personally do upgrade my CPU enough for that to matter. I went from a 3070X to a 9700X, and of course DDR4 to DDR5. Gaming at 1440p, the 9700X will be enough for a long time with GPU upgrade. Yeah. And then who is this? D Pyro said this. I went from a 1600 to a 5600 on the same board. My board is still getting support as of March 11, 2025, when the board came out in 2017. And Leon says, and what does anything of that have to do with socket lifespan? You can upgrade your CPU many times on the same motherboard, like with AMD. This is exactly why Intel is shambles right now. They don't learn. Yeah, meaning that like if you check the serial number, that it means that your board can hold a higher CPU. It says, then Eternal said this, during the Intel's stagnation, they used to change the socket every 2 generations of chips. Then Leon said, and that's okay if AMD can maintain socket longevity for long while maintaining good CPU quality. Why can't Intel? This sounds like an Intel problem, and if those motherboards manufacturer loves it. Then Eternal Tempest says, no, I prefer the AMD design to making the socket last as long as possible. And who else is this? Let's see here. Ringo said this. He's responding to, who is this? He says, my point is, while it's a great future, I am not sure how many people actually get to take advantage of it, as most people do not upgrade their CPUs frequently enough. If Intel had far better CPU, and with every generation they swap sockets, no one would care. And he says, my example is pretty common from the people I know. GPU upgrades are far more frequent with PC gamers, and if you are not a PC gamer, then you basically buy a pre-built or laptop anyhow. You also get other stuff as well. During a every 4 or more years CPU upgrade, faster RAM, more PCI lanes, faster M.2 slot, USB-C/Thunderbolt, enough to make a worthy upgrade, giving you an overall more capable upgrade versus just a CPU upgrade. Then if you are a gamer, it's usually less important that GPU upgrades provide you CPU can feed the GPU, which is by far most games are wanting. Yes, there are CPUs heavy games and non-gaming tasks, but I am going to bet that most people building their own PCs are in for gaming. Yeah, I mean that is true. Most people that build their PC are in for gaming. Yeah, I mean I mean this is why I say video game pushes the tech industry, because it forces you to upgrade. You just have to, you know. If you take the gaming out of the situation, then we probably would be using Pentium 4s right now. Just saying. Anyway, then Ringo said, that's great. The motherboard you have is probably behind every aspect: RAM, PCI lanes, M.2 Gen 3 Max, older, slower USB ports, etc. However, if that does not matter, then you get more life out of setup and save some money. That is true. And then Becker is at it again. Let's see what he's yapping about here. Let's see what Becker here says. He says he's responding to Ringo. He said, I have the same setup of 5800X installed and in an older X470 board. You are correct that I don't get PCI 4.0 speed. I do have fast USB ports, but fewer than a newer board. I don't think I have access to resizable bars. Never looked. I get the same number of CPU lanes, but the chipset lanes are reduced to 2.0 speed, not 3.0. So that is a major issue if you want expansion cards. But luckily, even back then, AMD M.2 connect directly to the CPU, so not a big issue. There are even some firmware hack that enable 4.0 speed for LANs that don't use the chipset. RAM isn't an issue at all. The controller is located on the CPU. So when I upgrade, I got a new RAM controller. The motherboard may be certified for those higher speeds, but they work just fine. And then he says, at the end of the day, I don't feel the constraint at all. The only real thing I wish I had was the option for a faster second M.2 slot. The primary runs at 3.0. It's more than enough for my speed, but the second one runs only at 2 is a bit a bummer. Yeah. Well, he could have an expansion card for that. Just saying. Anyway, who else I got here? And then Ringo, he comes back. He says, who is he responding to here? He says he's responding to Becker. He says, honestly, that for gaming, it just does not matter much. Yes, you will get faster load times in some games. That's a load and a lot of data. I have 2 terabyte Samsung 990 on my mobile and 64 gigs of DDR5 6000. I play DCS, Military Flight Sim, and their latest Germany map takes up to 42 gigs of RAM, loading up the world. That is a lot of data from a D drive that I dedicated to games into RAMs. Anything else, I use it for probably does not touch the speed of the RAM or drives. Yeah, it means that video games push the PC industry. Anyway, and then Hag said this, of course, it needs a new socket. They always do. So, smiley face. The Next Gen Gamer says this. Article is worded in a way that is hard to understand from timeline point, and it makes it sound like Intel is changing socket next, which is not true. Intel is currently on socket LGA1954. The release in quarter 2024 alongside Arrow Lake, the Core Ultra 200 series. And then he says Intel next lineup is Panther Lake, which will release in the first quarter 2026, delay from quarter 4 2025. This will be branded as Core Ultra 300 series and will be compatible with the current LGA1951 socket. Thus, Intel will have 2 generation on this socket, which is par for par for the cores with them. Intel next lineup after Panther Lake will be Nova Lake, and that will release in quarter 4 2026 at the earliest. That one will use the new LGA socket 1954 and probably be branded as Intel Core Ultra 400 series. However, by the time Nova Lake release at the end of 2026, it will not be competing again Zen 5. AMD has started on numerous times, including very recently, that Zen 6 is on track for a 2H 2026 release. AMD has been on time with every Zen release, so at least right now it would be Nova Lake versus Zen 6 in quarter 4 2026. Good point. And who is this? Becker says this: considering how far behind Intel is right now, maybe it will take them until nearly 2027 to compete with Zen 5. Joking, but good catch on the socket thing. You are correct. Sounds like the author, like most of us, simply forgot Core Ultra 200 exists, because unless you have a laptop, it may as well not. And that is the end of that. So yeah, Intel is on the move again, man. So these little tech heads and gamers, they're sharing their little insights, what all this means. So yeah, well, Intel is trying to compete with AMD, but AMD is on the Zens. They got a Zen 6 and a Zen 7 in the lineup. So yeah, I think it was WCCF Tech that talked about that. So they're on it, man. So Intel got some catching up to do, but it doesn't mean that their CPUs are bad. It's just AMD is just consistent. Yeah. Other than that, yeah. What it says here, other than that, that's all the news I got to report on the Intel news front. So I had to read all the comments to see what these gamers are talking about on, and they gave some great examples, what all this means. So yeah. Anyway, hope you guys enjoyed the video. Nice talking to you people again. Chris, Star Wars, such a thing. Boring, dark, such. Oh, God. Peace.